what do you think a pedophile looks like? Or what do you think somebody who operates a digital sex slave trade looks like? And just when you think you could conjure an image in your head, or just when you think you might know what they look like, you probably don't. And that's the reality for a lot of South Koreans, because these same people that do just that are the ones sitting next to them on the subway. Are their college professors, are the CEO of major companies, and maybe even their relatives. You might be asking, well, how is this possible? How can they do all of that and walk in the world with no guilt, no regret of what they've done? And the nth room makes it possible. Hello everyone, my name is Kenneth Wing, and for my criminology project today, I'm going to be discussing the nth room, an active case in South Korea that is under investigation. And before I add in any criminological theory or just throw typology out there, I did want to provide some contextualization on the story. Back in 2013, an app by the name of Telegram was created by two Russian brothers who were tired of censorship in Russia, and they were tired of the authorities having the capability of accessing their private information. So as a result, they created this app as a way to send messages, send videos, and send information without running the risk of being caught. It's fascinating to note that this app is legal in many different nations, one of them being the United States and of course South Korea. Telegram worked like any other messaging app, just like WhatsApp or just like Kik Messenger, except in the way that it was encrypted. So if the government was to hack into your conversation, or if they were to hack into a chat room, all they would find is code. So this allowed Telegram to be a platform for criminals who were able to get away with sending heinous images and videos through this messaging service. A user by the name of God decided to use Telegram as a way to exploit women in order to get money from individuals who are willing to pay to watch these women do heinous things to themselves. In order to get access to these chat rooms, the individuals called the Watchmen would need to share a link, and this link was shared exclusively through word of mouth online. After managing to get the link, you would have access to 8 or more chat rooms, and these chat rooms would allow you access if you had paid. I just wanted to take this opportunity to say slight trigger warning for violence and gore, as I'm about to briefly discuss what happens in each chat room. So if you were to pay $200, you might have access to nudes of women. If you were to pay about $400, $500, you might get access to videos of women self-harming themselves in ways that are too violent to be said. Maybe $600, $800, you might have access to having a say in what these women do. Have videos of them going into men's restrooms, having videos of them decapitating themselves. And if you pay up to $1,500, you are granted access to their personal information. This means full name, this means home address, list of family members, all of their permanent addresses, such as their workplace or their school. And not only that, you'll find videos of individuals going over to their homes and assaulting them. Now, it raises the question of how were these women involved in this digital sex slave trade, and how do these men have access to their personal information? Well, it goes like this. In order to get women to submit to them, God would post sponsorship ads on public pages like Twitter and Naver in order for women to sign up and post their personal information as a way to gain money. And you'll find that the women signing up to be sponsors are the ones that might be in poor financial situations, such as having the need to pay off debt or whatnot. This becomes indicative of the strain theory, and in criminology, the strain theory suggests that individuals are faced with conflict when they feel like what they need to do to achieve their goals is a risky means. The strain theory can be applied to both the perpetrators and the women involved in the case who are the victims. The perpetrators of the case may find themselves to consider, well, Maybe if I were to operate these Telegram chat rooms, which can't be found by authorities, I'd be able to make a quick buck without having to risk my rapport or my face, while at the same time, the woman or the victims in the situation, the nth room, believe that in order to gain money in an unconventional way, I might just have to submit myself to being a sponsor. Both parties involved in the nth room believe that instead of gaining income in a societally acceptable way, it's more beneficial for them to risk their social status or their lives gaining money in this way. Continuing forward with the story, the perpetrators or the operators of these chat rooms would gather women's personal information and use it to blackmail them. And so how they would do that is that these women would sign up with their social security number, and the social security number system works differently in Korea than in the United States, where in Korea you're able to look up permanent home addresses, you're able to look up the workplace, the school, family connections, all by typing in their number and the aligning personal information on a website. And so what they would do is that when the woman would send a nude to say,
"Hey look, I'm doing my part, I'm sending these pictures, will I be able to get paid?"
the operators would then say,
"You know, I have these nudes, and I have a collection of videos that you sent me, along with your face. What if these were released to your family members, or what if they were released to your church group or your friends?"
And so these operators would play them in a way where they wouldn't get paid, the sponsors wouldn't get paid, and also they would end up getting blackmailed further and further as a way to meet the operators' demands. Little did they know these heinous videos that these operators were asking for were being sent into chat rooms with tens of thousands of people. It's crazy to think how tens of thousands of people, or even up to 200,000 people, are willing to pay and watch these videos, and not one has spoken up about the matter since 2018. The reality is that one individual actually had reported it to the police, but the police had told them that they couldn't do anything, as these chat rooms were encrypted, first of all, and second, there's no way of knowing if those videos were consensual or non-consensual. And so funnily enough, the same individual who had reported it to the police decided to become an operator themselves. Little did they know they would get arrested, and during their arrest they were questioned as to why they decided to operate a room when they were one of the brave souls who discussed this with authorities. And they had said
that if the police aren't going to do anything about it, I might as well make a buck.
This ties into the rational choice theory, as criminals have been known to make conscious decisions about weighing the costs and benefits of committing a crime. So instead of just going to a crime blindly, going into a crime out of being emotionally charged or angered or frustrated, they're understanding that, hey, the consequences aren't as bad as I think they'll be, or well, will I even be caught in the first place? Even then, they still decide to commit the crime, and that's what the perpetrator who confessed to the cops did. Continuing onward, God would essentially keep these slaves in a cycle, and the age of these slaves would range from 9 years old or 11 years old to about their 30s. Keep that in mind. These girls could be as young as 9 to 11. That's elementary school age. And it's crazy because then not only does this become non-consensual pornographic scandal case, but then it becomes a matter of pedophilia. This vicious cycle of blackmailing continues until the victims or the slaves were tired of sending and doing these crazy acts that God would tell them to do. What would happen if the victims told them no? If God or any other operator were to tell them to do a certain thing and they said no, that was when the operators would send their personal information into those $1,500 chat rooms, and masked men would assault these women in their own homes and end up recording them to send them those videos in that exact same chat room. God wasn't the only operator of these chat rooms on Telegram, but there were also copycat operators like Baksu, which translates to the professor in Korean. And so then there would be multiple chat rooms held on Telegram that would serve the same purpose. It is known that after the case, there were up to 103 victims, and these are only the victims that have been found after the case was unfolding. 26 of these known 103 happen to be minors. This cycle continued from 2018 and might still even be happening right now. So how did this case get blown up? How did this case end up getting the coverage that it deserves? Well, what happened was that 2 students who went to a journalism school in Korea were actually assigned internet crimes as a part of their project, and so they decided to take on the Nth Room. Their student project would be one of the first pieces to spotlight this crime. And it's because of that student piece, many major media outlets such as SBS decided to cover this case. And this put operators in a vulnerable position where they felt the need to threaten SBS, saying that
if the authorities or if news outlets decided to report on this case, we will torment every single victim into committing suicide by jumping off of the SBS tower.
the cops knew that they weren't going to take that threat lightly, and that also didn't mean that they were going to take a step back from the case. Instead, they went undercover and found a list of names that were involved in the Telegram group chats and getting access to these Telegram chats. With their involvement, they were able to find an individual by the name of Buddha and track down the personal address. When physically confronted, Buddha didn't seem like the intimidating person he was behind the screen. Buddha, who was working as a treasurer for Baksu. Baksu is a copycat operator who took on what God attempted to do in 2018. What had happened was, while God was committing these scandals, he had left the map in 2019, and so many copycat operators such as Baksu decided to take it on. You might be surprised to know that the press in Korea is a little bit different in terms of the judicial system. So if a criminal is convicted of a crime, their face is not exposed to the public until they are charged guilty. But the only way for their face to be revealed is if they are believed to be a public threat. And so the government decided to reveal a picture of their face after 2 million individuals signed a petition that would push it forward. This is Cho Joo-bin, an operator of a digital sex slave trade in South Korea, 24 years old, and a recent graduate of a technical institute in South Korea. He had a 4.0 GPA and volunteered at orphanages. When questioned by the press, he had said, "Thank you for putting a brake on the life of a devil that couldn't be stopped." You would think that after the arrest of Cho Joo-bin and the infiltration of police in these Telegram chat rooms, that the case would be over, but it still continues. First off, Korean legislation fails to address digital sex slave trades within their laws, and so that means that Cho Joo-bin has only been charged with financial fraud as well as the possession of pornography, which only keeps him in prison for a year as his only punishment. Secondly, as police hold up to 100,000 names of men who have participated in the sex slave trade as viewers, they are currently being protected by the government. Why, you may ask? It is known that in these list of names, there are CEOs, Korean pop idols, and Korean pro athletes listed in these names. And so if Korea and if the Korean government decided to release this list of names, it would ruin major face for the nation. Regardless of the petitions that are signed, the Korean government is going to withhold from releasing these names to the public. Not only is it a matter of upholding the rapport that Korea has as an international power, but it's also about having space in their prisons. If they were charged, then that means that they would need to have space for 100,000 prisoners, have rehabilitation services for 100,000 individuals, and not only that, but they need to cater to their families. If family members were potentially to be exposed, then those associated with the criminals would end up committing social suicide. Many Korean citizens disagree, but then it's a matter of economic disparity and what's morally right. Now, after providing a brief overview of the nth room, we can now apply some criminological theories and typologies that I believe are best suited for what has occurred and what is still occurring to this day. First, I wanted to discuss the critical feminism theory, which suggests that women are more likely to be targeted as victims of a crime in a patriarchal society. And a part of that is also because of a capitalist society. And because men want to uphold their status of wealth and power, they're going to project themselves onto weaker subjects. Not only that, but it supports the idea of the violence graduation hypothesis. The violence graduation hypothesis is not listed in the Siegel textbook, but I decided to look it up on other sources. And the violent graduation hypothesis says that when a serial killer is torturing young animals, they have a tendency to graduate from the murder and the torture of young animals to humans for further gratification. Although this theory has been exclusively applied to serial killers, I find that it's pretty fitting for an individual like Cho Ju-bin, who may have volunteered at an orphanage and found ways to exploit minors on a digital and more grand platform. Next, I wanted to talk about social disorganization theory, which is a theory that believes criminals are encouraged to commit crime in areas that lack social control or have institutions that fail to address criminality. It's unfortunate how this theory could be applied to a well-developed nation like Korea, when in reality the only reason why is because their traditionalism does not allow them to progress in their legislation. Without any laws protecting minors or those who are sexually exploited, criminals who indulge in violent pornographic content are able to wander the streets of Korea with no punishment or minor punishment. Speaking on the idea of looking or maintaining the appearance of a citizen while participating in criminal activity, I did want to touch on the neutralization theory. Neutralization theory discusses that criminals don't look like criminals most of the time. They have the ability to blend into communities, going in and out of being a conventional citizen and dabbling in crime. It's with these citizens that are able to conform to society and then participate in deviant behavior that are able to have a long-running list of criminal activity. Another aspect of the neutralization theory is the denial of the victim, which states that the criminal had committed the act on a particular victim because they had it coming for them. This ultimately justifies their criminal behavior as a way that was inevitable for a normal citizen to participate in. It's hard to label the nth room with one typology, but in the end, I decided to use the organizational crime typology, which suggests that highly centralized groups of individuals who are a part of engaging in criminal activity, usually as a means for profit. With that being said, the nth room still continues to be an active case today. Just because Cho Ju-bin was caught doesn't mean that this digital sex slave trade still isn't happening. Especially with the government choosing not to release the names for right now, many viewers feel prompted to continue engaging in these Telegram group chats. Now, after knowing what you know now, it might not be safe to say that the individuals closest to you can never be the next nth room operator.